computer.
Yes, it's recording.
Yes, recording.
Okay, thank you for tolerating me. Just learning how to do this.
Sorry for being
You can watch a
nuisance.
video or something about Zoom on your spare time. I had to do that one time just to get to understand a little bit
So
how the thing
we're
works.
now recording. So Vaishnavi, are you okay to read the verse 1:1? I think we should read the verses too, because that's what we're doing the understanding of. So are you okay to read 1:1 of the Bhagavad-Gita?
Yes, yes.
Do you
yes.
have? Oh, go ahead.
Dhritarashtra said, O Sanjaya, after assembling in the place of pilgrimage at Kurukshetra, what did my sons and the sons of Pandu do, being desirous to fight? Fantastic.
So there's three options. Maybe I should just keep everyone involved all the time. Maybe Sudharma would like to read the first option, Krishna Priya the second, Hari Priya the third option, and then I'll ask Vaishnavi to tell us which she thinks is an understanding, which she thinks is a comment, and which she thinks is a paraphrase. So Sudharma, would you be kind enough to read the first one?
Okay, but I want to read all three of them and say which one is, but sure. Dhritarashtra was offered the ability to see the battlefield by Vyasadeva. He declined, so Vyasadeva gave, I can't see it because the pictures of everybody are there.
Oh,
you can actually move the pictures.
No, I know how to move them. Just
okay.
give me a sec. So Vyasadeva gave the ability to Sanjay. Now Dhritarashtra is asking Sanjay to tell him what's happening on the battlefield.
Krishna Priya, do you want to read the second one?
Yes. Dhritarashtra asked Sanjaya to tell him what his sons and the 5 Pandavas are doing now that they are at Kurukshetra. He mentions that they had originally gone there with the intention to fight. He also mentions that Kurukshetra is famous as being a sacred place.
Fantastic. Hari Priya?
Dhritarashtra says, Sanjay, what did my sons and Pandu's sons do after they assembled at the place of pilgrimage, Kurukshetra, with the intention to fight?
Okay, so one of these is a comment / understanding, but there's a comment in there, which I'm trying to gradually stop. The other is just a pure understanding in my own words. And the other is a paraphrasing. So Vaishnavi, do you want to have a go at saying which is which?
Sure. Yes, so the understanding is the third one. Dhritarashtra says, Sanjay, what did my sons and Pandu's sons do after they assembled at the place of pilgrimage, Kurukshetra, with the intention to fight? The paraphrasing is the second one, and the comment is the first one.
Okay, so I'm gonna, maybe I should ask everyone first.
Oh, sorry.
And then, no, I'm really glad you did. I'm going to ask everyone if they agree with that, go through 1 through 4 and see if they do it the same, and then come back and ask you why you gave the choices you did. So okay. Sudharma Prabhu, in your opinion, which is an understanding, which is a paraphrase, and which is a comment?
Yeah.
You may have the same, Vaishnavi may have been right, you may have the same thing as her, or you may see it differently.
I actually saw it pretty much how Vaishnavi saw it. Yeah. I think the understanding is just, I think more than just even saying what they are, the understanding is just straightforward. This is what I heard. And then, so that is Dhritarashtra says, Sanjaya, what did my sons and the son? And then commenting is, I'm just thinking this through in my head. Paraphrasing would be saying it kind of like in your own words or whatever like that. So I think, okay, wait, am I getting it mixed up? Yeah, paraphrasing would be that Dhritarashtra is asking Sanjaya to tell him. And the comment is that Dhritarashtra was offered the ability to see the battlefield by Vyasadeva.
Interesting the way you did that, Sudharma, because you helped me realize one miscommunication that might be happening as I try to share this with you. That when I use the word paraphrase, I don't mean put it in your own words. That's what understanding.
Yeah.
And when
Okay.
Oh,
I use
I had the same thing as Sudharma.
yeah, that's okay. So we can change it. It's not like a test or anything. And this kind of exercise is helping me realize where the miscommunication is taking place. So when I use the word paraphrase, I mean I'm putting the meaning in my own words. No, that's not.
Okay.
We sold you on that.
Yes.
That's what I mean. When I say understanding, I mean putting the meaning in my own words. And when I use
Okay, then switch it around.
okay, and when I use the word paraphrase, I mean more or less using Prabhupada's words or the text words and just kind of
Okay, so then switch it around, because I actually had the same thought process as Sudharma, so we were both on the same page. Sudharma Prabhu.
fantastic.
Well, thank you for clarifying. Appreciate that.
It's
We
like-
had the concept, just not the right words.
That's right. It's just it's the semantical thing. So does anyone have a different view? Does anyone put it
I have already done it with you, so I know the answer. So I'm going to abstain.
yeah, but let me tell you, it's new for you because I want you to think about it yourself. If you were to think about it again, would you agree with this?
No.
How would you?
And that with the first one, the commenting, I agree with the commenting. Maybe I forgot what I discussed with you because I didn't note it down.
That's okay.
But if I remember it right, the conclusion was that the first one is the commenting.
Yeah,
That
that's what she said.
that is very clear, But then this understanding and paraphrasing, and then I would go for the second one being the understanding, and the last one being the paraphrasing.
That's what Vaishnavi and Sudharma did as well. They just got the different words. So I've put a little red C for commenting, a red U for understanding, and a red P for paraphrasing.
Right.
Do you agree, or do you have a different?
Yeah. Yes, that was perfect. I actually was going to ask you to define paraphrasing. So I was actually a bit confused in the minute. I was like, what? So yes, now it's very clear.
Let's go now look at these before we go to the next ones. Why is number one this one? Why is that a comment? Because he's pretty much saying it. Why are we saying that's a comment?
Because that's not in the verse. This information about Dhritarashtra being offered the ability to see wasn't actually in the verse.
Yes. It's completely true. It's giving background that's not in the sentence or the sentences that we're doing the understanding of. It's a completely true statement. It's just not there. And why is this one a paraphrase? According to the way I use the word paraphrase, the last one.
Because it's just saying it pretty much the way Prabhupada said it.
Perfect, just turning it around. Using the same words, intention to fight, assembled at the place of pilgrimage. Whereas in the middle one, I don't use any of his own words. He also mentions Kurukshetra is famous as being a sacred place. It's like, I've completely used my own words and phraseology. Okay, so the next one, let's Sudharma Prabhu to do that because you're the next person on my screen. So do you have the Gita to read the verse, Prabhu?
No, I read off the computer, so since I have this up here, I can't.
Would someone else like to read it? 1, 2.
Yes, I can read it. But I have the old version of the Bhagavad-Gita, if that's all right.
That's good.
Sure. Yes.
That's the one I
said,
memorized.
Sanjaya said, O king, after looking over the army gathered by the sons of Pandu, King Duryodhana went to his teacher and began to speak the following words.
Okay, I'm actually going to read you this version too because I did it based on this. So the paraphrase has got this wording in it. So this is the wording of the amended version. Sanjaya said, O king, after looking over the army arranged in military formation by the sons of Pandu, King Duryodhana went to his teacher and spoke the following words. Because in the paraphrase, I would have used the words in my text. So, Sudharma Prabhu, are you able, can you see the screen well enough to read the 3 options and tell us?
Sure.
Go ahead.
This is the first time we hear Sanjay speaking in the Gita. He tells him Duryodhana, has surveyed the Pandavas' army and is now approaching Duryodhana because he wants to speak to him.
Thank you. Haripriya, you read the verse, Krishna Priya, so I get Haripriya to read the next one.
Both Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana are referred to as king. Sanjay tells King Dhritarashtra that King Duryodhana surveys the Pandavas' army and then goes to speak to Drona.
Thank you. Vaishnav?
Sanjay says that after King Duryodhana looked over the Pandavas' army, which was standing in military formation, he went to his teacher and spoke to him.
Okay, so we're back with Sudama Prabhu. Do you want to be the first one to say which you think is an understanding, which a paraphrase, and which is a comment?
Okay, I'm not sure if I'm the one to do it, but I can try. Understanding. This is the first time we hear Sanjay speaking in the Gita. He tells him Duryodhana has surveyed the Pandavas' army and is now approaching Drona because he wants to speak to him. I mean, I hope I've got the way that you want us to understand the tones right, but that's what I would think would be the understanding.
Okay, let's put it understanding there.
Okay, paraphrase.
There's no right or wrong, because it's not that you're wrong or you're right. I'm just trying to share with you how I see it. So
Yeah, okay.
No.
I mean, I hope I'm getting it the way that you know, if we're trying to get all on the same page, I hope I'm getting it. I'm not sure if I am. As far as paraphrasing, I would say Sanjaya says that after King Duryodhana looked over the Pandavas' army, which was standing in the military formation, he went to his teacher and spoke to him.
That's paraphrasing.
Yeah, and then what was the other one? Commenting?
Commenting.
Yeah, commenting. Both Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana are referred to as king. Sanjaya tells King Dhritarashtra that King Duryodhana surveys the Pandavas' army and then goes to speak to Drona.
Do you think that's a comment?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess you think that's an understanding by the way that you responded, but yeah.
Well, whatever I think is, I mean, the thing is, it's not that I'm an absolute authority. It's just I'm sharing with you how I use language and how.
Yeah, I guess I use it a little different.
Yeah.
That's the
So,
problem.
yeah.
I'm trying to get there though for you. So yeah, so just be patient with
I'm
me.
so grateful that you're participating in this. I truly am. But are you happy now with that? That the first is an understanding, the first is a comment. First is an understanding, the second is a comment, and the third is a paraphrase. Yeah.
For me, yes.
Okay.
For the group understanding, no, I'm not satisfied, but I don't know what to say. I'm working my way there.
For the group understanding, I don't quite understand.
Well, I think that you know, this is an exercise that we're working to get our language so that we're all on the same page about, you know, what we mean when we say different things. And I think I'm not with the group yet quite on that, but that is my understanding. That one's a comment.
Different examples. So by the end of the examples, we'll hopefully be using these terms in the same way. Krishna Priya, how would you put it? And I'm going to put, if everyone's got a different one, I'll put it next to. How would you put the first one?
Well, I can also follow the line of Sudharma Mataji. I think I expressed this to you in the one-to-one session as well, because it is a fact that is the first time that Sanjaya is speaking in the Gita, and you could see that as an understanding. But at the same time, that second one is catching more of what is actually directly in the first. And if I had to choose between the two, then I would say the first one is comment and the second one is understanding. I would turn it around.
Okay. And you agree with the last?
And the last is the same, that is paraphrased, because Prabhupada's words are there and it is only in another order.
And I like the way you explained your reasoning, and it'll be interesting to know Sudama Prabhu's reasoning. So your reasoning is, you can see why someone would think this is an understanding, because if we were to look at the book, this is the first time Sanjay speaks. So, but this one actually brings out what's said. It's twice both, I mean, once Duryodhana is referred to as king, once Dhritarashtra is referred to as king, and then King Dhritarashtra. So that one brings out more what's actually said in the words we're trying to understand. Whereas this one, it's not said in the words, though it's true, it is the first time. So that's your reasoning for putting it in that order.
Because I'm thinking, like, if you would get this like in a multiple choice question, and you had, like, you know, you could only fit in A, B, or C, you know, in that way, then you would look which answer is closer, you know. So in reasoning in that way, I would, you know, give the preference for the understanding to the second one, and then the other one naturally falls away. So
it's really interesting what you're saying, and I'm going to reflect back in my own words what I'm hearing from you, is that it's not so clear. It's only clear because only one of them can be an understanding. The other, by default, has got to be a comment. It's obviously a paraphrase. If this wasn't so obviously an understanding, you would have put this as an understanding, because it does come up. But because only one of them is an understanding, you're thinking, well, the other one must by default be a comment. That's the only way you would be able to distinguish it. You wouldn't be able to distinguish it if it stood on its own. That's how.
this, yes, I agree. You understood me perfectly. Thank you.
Very much. Okay, thank you for explaining your rationale. Haripriya, how about you?
Well, ironically, this brings in something that I wanted to say that I didn't before, but it makes sense now. So when Sudharma had mentioned this is the beginning of the Bhagavad-Gita, and she saw the verse, I actually thought that was an understanding, because I thought, well, yes, she's able to show what she's referring to, that this is the beginning. I mean, the day of that we were talking about it, she didn't kind of explain it. So we, you know, the assumption was it was an addition. But then the next time we spoke about it, when she said, well, I see the number, and thus it is. So here it's the same kind of thing where it says Sanjay said. So it's like, at first it's a little confusing to me, because not confusing, but I could go either way. Let's put it that way. I could go either way, because when I see Sanjaya said, I think, well, it's here. So if someone says, well, the words are right there, Sanjaya said, and this is the first time I'm seeing them. So if I want to share that Sanjay speaking for the first time, that could totally be an understanding. And someone else might look at it and say, well, it just says Sanjaya said, you know, it's the first time he spoke, but it doesn't say it's the first time he spoke. So that's an addition. So I kind of see both. And I guess in a sense, I feel like I could defend both in terms of, but of course, similar to what she said, because it's multiple choice, and that we're clearly specifically trying to, we're really getting into the nitty gritty of how, it's almost like there's no other way to see the second one for me, because there's no addition in it. I can't find an addition in that second one. So if I go, okay, both Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana are referred to as king. I look there, okay, it says, oh, king. Yeah, he is talking to Dhritarashtra. Then it says King Duryodhana. Okay, so yes, that's a true understanding of the text. Sanjay tells King Dhritarashtra that King Duryodhana surveys the Pandavas' army. Does that happen? Yes, that's in the text. Then I say, okay, then goes to speak to Drona. Yes, he spoke to his teacher. We know that his teacher is Drona. So similar to what Krishna Priya said, when I look at the second one, I'm clear that that's only an understanding. Then I know that the first one is considered an addition or a comment, only because I'm assuming because Sanjay speaking is there, but the first time nothing referring to the first time is there.
Really nice rationale. I'm going to let Vaishnavi speak as well before I add some thoughts. Vaishnavi, what do you think?
I really don't have anything else to add.
I
agree with both Krishna Priya and Hari Priya. Okay. So there's not really anything else I can add. And I agree that yes, in this multiple choice, I mean, I would just be saying the same thing. So
I always give you the option, but
no, that's fine. But I don't have anything else to say other than that.
So I'd like to just say something. You know, it's a little bit like when we learn to drive. when we're first learning to drive, there's a certain sequence. You know, you've got to look in your mirror first, and then look behind your shoulders, and then put the clutch on, and then release your, you know. But once you're a driver, you may not do it in that order, and there's going to be a lot more fluidity. You know what I mean? You may kind of look over your shoulder first, and then look in your mirror, and then, you know what I mean? So it's like we don't, when we're actually driving, we don't drive like when we're first learning. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but certainly that's the case with me. So when we're doing our natural discussions, sometimes it's okay. I mean, we will do something like this one, which is like a cross between an understanding and a comment. And that's okay, especially if there's only two of us. There's a lot of fluidity when there's two of us. It's just at this point, when I'm trying to share with you the difference that I see between comment, anything which is a comment in it, and anything which is a pure understanding, it seems pernickety. But when you're actually doing your discussions, if you decide to go on to do discussions like this, especially if there's two of you, you don't necessarily have to be so pernickety if you feel you want more fluidity. But at least there's an awareness now of, especially when it gets to very complicated verses or sections or purports, you may want to fall back on the strictness. A little bit like if you're in a very difficult traffic situation, you may want to fall back to the kosher way of driving that you learnt, you know. But when you're just an open road, you may not be so kosher. So it's like that. I'm not trying to say in every single discussion you've got to make this clear distinction, but I'm putting these examples there just to help you see the finer distinctions. And Krishna Priya and Hari Priya's reasonings were that. I put, in fact, this one's so close to an understanding, but that's a comment. And though it's true, and you could make an argument from it, it's a little bit like when Hari Priya. In fact, if I was doing a coaching session with someone and they made an argument out of it, I'd say, okay, I accept it, you know. But if you're wanting to, just like, I think Hari Priya did something once, and I said, okay, I accept it, because she made well, no, that's the word. If she would have said, no, there it is, Sanjay said, it's the first time I'm seeing Sanjay said, therefore, that's my justification for saying this is a strict understanding, I'd say, okay, you've shown me your justification. I don't know if any of that makes any sense.
It all made perfect sense,
Okay.
I think.
Okay, fantastic, thank you. So now we'll go to 1-3. I don't know whose turn it is to read the verse. I think it's Hari Priya's turn to read the verse. And read the verse yet?
Oh, my teacher, behold the great, and I also have the edited one. I have both, but if someone feels it, you know, wants to add the unedited, please do so.
Well, I worked off the edited one, so okay. I worked off the edited one. So.
Okay. Oh, my teacher, behold the great army of the sons of Pandu, so expertly arranged by your intelligent disciple, the son of Drupad.
So, Vaishnavi, would you like to read the first one?
Sanjay's teacher is looking at the Pandavas' army and admiring how well they're organized.
Thank you. Sudama Prabhu, would you like to read the second one?
Drona taught both the Pandavas' side and Duryodhan's side. Duryodhan is mad about that. He insists that Drona hadn't taught the he wishes, sorry, I can't see so well, that Drona hadn't taught the Pandavas' side.
Okay, I put 4 examples here.
I know, you're giving me the hard one.
Yes. And I think I put it at the bottom of my letter. The reason I put 4, I'll tell you what, no, we're not practicing on packing, please. Okay, number 4. 2 of them are understandings. Okay, so I'm trying to, right.
Okay.
So 2 of these are going to be understandings, 1 is a comment and 1 is a paraphrase. So who's the next one to read? Go ahead, Hari Priya, you can read, if that's your turn.
I think it's Krishna Priya.
Krishna Priya, did you read?
No.
Okay.
No, it's a third one, isn't it? I have a bit of difficulty with my glasses and the screen.
Yeah. Drona taught that one.
Oh,
Is the
that
second
one was this.
no, that
Dharma
was
just read that
read.
one. Mother
Oh, you
Yes,
read
that's
that, did you?
Duryodhana is speaking to Drona. He's pointing out that Drishtadyumna, another of Drona's students, has done a really good job of organizing the Pandavas' army.
Fantastic. And then this one, okay, Sudama, no, not Sudama, Vaishnavi, because it's Hari Priya's turn to tell us what it is. So would you like to read it, Vaishnavi?
Sure. Oh, teacher, look at the powerful army of the Pandavas. It has been expertly arranged by Drona's intelligent disciple, Drupad's son.
Okay, so let's go through each.
Okay. All right. The easiest to get out of the way is paraphrasing. So I'm going to look for paraphrasing. Bear with me. Teacher, look at the powerful army of the Pandavas. It was like, I think it's the last one, but let me double check. Behold the great army of the sons of Pandus, actually arranged by your intelligent disciple, son of Drupad. Okay, the last one is paraphrasing.
Yeah. And why was that so easy for you to pick up?
Because it's like very similar words.
Yeah, very similar words. As soon as we use very similar words, now there's a problem with paraphrasing, and this is why I encourage people to break the habit of paraphrasing. The problem with paraphrasing is that it can, in some circumstances, mask the fact we haven't understood. Because, you know, even a parrot can say the same words, but we want to keep the same meaning, but we want to demonstrate we've understood the meaning. And if we just repeat the same words, it can, even to us, mask that I haven't really grasped it. But as soon as we have to put it in our own words, it forces us to put our brains into third gear and to really think, how am I going to put the meaning in my own words? So I think paraphrasing, I feel, is one of the most worst habits if we want to penetrate meaning. It's a habit that we need to break if we want to grasp meaning. So that's the paraphrase. Okay, which one would you think?
So, so I'm actually gonna say one of the ones that I know is an understanding. It's a little challenging because, and possibly you did this on purpose, possibly because I disagree with one of the statements, and I'm guessing that still could be an understanding.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm like, okay, so yes, someone could understand it this way, but I disagree with it, but it's still an understanding. So I'm going to, okay, so wait, bear with me though. I'm still a little confused. I just want to glance over the sentences. Duryodhana is
where this is going. Yeah.
Duryodhana is speaking to Drona. He's pointing out that Drishtadyumna, another of his students, has done a really good, okay, that's definitely an understanding. There's nothing extra in the third one.
Did everyone pick up, when you find that one, I'm going to get you.
I think it's the top one. So I want to double check myself, but I think the first one is an understanding.
Okay.
Sanjay's teacher is looking at the Pandavas' army and admiring how well they are organized. I'm not 100% sure though, because I'm like, Sanjay's teacher. Okay, so, oh, my teacher. Hold this right. I mean, Sanjay's speaking. Oh, my teacher. It's hard for me to understand how that could be an understanding, but that's my speculation that's why it's in there. But anyway, so let's look at Drona taught both the Pandavas side. I want to confirm by making sure there's some addition in the second one. Drona taught both the Pandavas side and Duryodhana's side. Okay, that's kind of in there. Pandava side and Duryodhana. I mean, we know, kind of. Duryodhana is mad about that. Okay, that's an addition because it doesn't say anything about him being mad. We know that that's true, but that's probably from the purport that we've read so many times, but he wishes that Drona hadn't taught the Pandava side. Yeah, that's probably true. So that's a comment, and the top one's an understanding. Yeah. Man, what the challenge would be is, for me, understanding how that's an understanding, but yes, I can see it probably is.
Okay. Does anyone see it differently to Hari Priya? Okay, that's fine.
Can you explain how that could possibly be Sanjay's teacher?
Can I say something though? I do agree with Hari Priya. So your question, I didn't answer your question because I did agree with Hari Priya, but I can answer according to my understanding of Hari Priya's question, how the first one would be an understanding. Is that okay?
Please do.
Okay. So like she said, like I also don't agree, because oh my teacher is obviously, it's Duryodhana speaking to Dronacharya. But I can see that if someone is reading the Bhagavad-Gita for the first time and doesn't know the backstory, he just heard that Sanjaya said he's talking to the king, and then the next verse it says, oh my teacher. So Sanjay must be talking about his teacher. So that's what I'm seeing.
Thank you so much. Yes. You see, and when someone does an understanding, we may not agree with them, but it's their understanding. That's why I put it there. Because sometimes two people will read the same sentence or the same, and one person completely disagree with each other's understanding. But that doesn't mean they both haven't done an understanding. They've both done. Then you will go on, when we come to asking questions, to try to address what we think is a misunderstanding in the other person. We don't stop them and say, that's not an understanding, that's wrong. No, it's their understanding. Again, in these simple verses, it's not, it's not like, ooh. But when we come to very complicated parts of the Gita or the Bhagavatam, understanding these things and being able to differentiate, okay, I don't agree with him. I think he's misunderstood, but that was his or her misunderstanding. That's her understanding. And I'll leave it. I'll come back to that. I'll tell them how I understand it. That may be enough for them to change their mind. Or we'll come back to it later in the responses when we come to asking questions. But that, yes, you got it perfectly.
And can I just, when my experience of this kind of thing, because obviously my philosophical mind, when you say, well, this is her understanding, this is their understanding, and that's okay, my philosophical mind goes, what? So therefore, we're just going to go and speculate on the Gita and everybody's okay. So, but I know that's not what you mean, but this is what my philosophical mind goes into.
Vaishnavi, I'm so glad you're bringing up this point. It's such an important point. And would you mind if I addressed it?
I don't mind, but I was going to say something that in the past, when these kinds of things happened, I always find that the answer is actually in Srila Prabhupada's purport. So therefore, it's not my understanding versus their understanding, is what is Srila Prabhupada's understanding? Because that's what I'm interested in. I want to know what Srila Prabhupada's understanding is. I really don't care about anybody else's opinion, to be honest with you, if it's not the same as Srila Prabhupada's. That's just me. But anyway, yes, you can go ahead.
No, first of all, I really want to capture your point, to honor it by understanding it. I always feel if someone's taken the trouble to say something, I should take the trouble to understand them, or at least someone should understand them. But I don't want to hog the session. I'd love to understand you, but would anyone else prefer to understand? Would anyone else like a chance to understand Vaishnavi's last point?
I'll try.
Go ahead, Hari.
So you said that, you really want to know what the truth is, which you feel Prabhupada is telling us the truth, the reality. So you're only really interested in that. And that's usually found in the purport, some clarification if there's question about the text. Did I understand you correctly?
Oh, you did. But because you understood me so beautifully, I feel like I really need to add something.
Wonderful.
Is that I actually
please do.
I need to clarify one point. I am very interested to hear other people's understanding, especially if I'm in a teaching position, because then I can see where they're misunderstanding something. So therefore I can help them correct it if I don't hear it. So, but my point is that in my own spiritual life, there's been so many, people going this way, that at one point I had literally a spiritual crisis, and that's where I'm coming from. And I thought, I want to know exactly what Srila Prabhupada said. I'm not going to listen to who says what Prabhupada meant this way. Let me hear directly from him. So I've been listening to Srila Prabhupada's lecture for over 10 years, for hours and hours, so that I can actually capture Srila Prabhupada and not everybody else who is telling me Srila Prabhupada is saying this or that, or I think he's saying that. So that's my pet peeve. So I apologize. I don't mean anything against anybody. I'm just saying that for my own sake, for my own salvation, it's been very important for me to understand and not try to speculate on Srila Prabhupada. So that's all. Hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you. I will do my best. But I understand. So you're saying that you want to make it very clear to everyone here and anyone you're ever, reading Gita with, especially people you're maybe teaching, that what you want, you want to hear what their understandings is. You want to know what they're thinking. But your ultimate core interest, because of some issues you've experienced with people kind of saying this thing and that thing, having opinions, speculations, additions, whatever it is, but conflicting opinions about what Prabhupada's teaching, it gave you a little bit of a crisis point where you decided you're mainly going to focus on Prabhupada and get to the real essence of what Prabhupada is offering, and you want to hear it firsthand and read it and understand it by listening to Prabhupada's lectures many hours and coming to that understanding.
Beautiful. You're so expert. Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
I'm so glad that you shared that. It's nice to know where you're coming from and why. I agree with I am in sync and with your desire to really get to the core of the truth. And yet at the same time, it's nice to know why you're attached to it, why you're attached to hearing mainly from Prabhupada.
I mean, I'm attached to hearing from everyone, but what I mean is when it comes to the conclusion, I personally made a vow to myself that if my mind says something different that I've never heard from Srila Prabhupada, I will not listen to it. So I do it with myself too. Because we're conditioned souls, I'm very much aware of my own frailties. So I want to make sure I know Srila Prabhupada said I never changed anything, I never cheated anyone. So I know I can trust him 150%, but I can't even trust my own mind. So what to speak of, so that's just where I'm coming from. But thank you.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for that addition, that you even don't trust that your own mind might add or speculate.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's why you're kind of wanting to get very, very connected to Prabhupada's words. He doesn't add or change or subtract.
Thank you.
Vaishnavi, Haripriya did such an excellent job of reflecting back what you said. And if it wasn't for time, I would also really like to reflect it. But I hope you feel understood.
I feel very understood.
I just want to say something. I feel exactly the same way as you. And I'm pretty sure so does Krishna Priya. And I would assume so does Sudharma Prabhu, which is Prabhupada's disciple. But I hear so many things. Like one of the favorite things I hear is that hearing from Prabhupada is jumping over the head of your guru, or hearing from Prabhupada is because it's not hearing from the lips of a living guru. And when I go to what Prabhupada says in the books, and I covered it in a class we did that Krishna Priya may have seen, I understand these things very differently from the people who are inadvertently giving it that twist. So I always like to go back to the actual words. And I like to hear the other person because they may help clarify the actual words for me. But if they're confusing the actual words, I maintain my own integrity. I don't have to accept what you say if it doesn't make sense to me. I mean, I'm not talking about you, what someone else says, but I feel very similar to you. So I don't know why we went on to this. There was, Vaishnavi, there was something you were saying that I actually wanted to comment on. Oh yes, the original point you raised, if I may respond to that, would that be okay?
Yes.
Your point was that, well, if in a discussion, someone does a wrong understanding and we just like understand them and just let it go, then our discussions are going to be full of misunderstandings and speculations, and how are we going to get to any siddhanta, to any truth like that? But I understand your
Yes, that's exactly what I meant. Yes, and I am also interested to hear other people that often I get clarification. especially from senior devotees like yourself and Sudharma Prabhu, which I respect highly. So it's not like I'm not listening to anyone else. I'm sorry if it sounded like this.
Not at all.
I didn't mean it that, I was not meaning it that way.
No. Can I just also, I do want to get to address your other point, but I just want to say,
Go ahead.
I really don't want anyone to accept me as a senior devotee. I'm not. I'm a second generation. I'm not even properly initiated anymore. Both my gurus fell down. And I know I'm not advanced in my habits. You know, as far as I'm concerned, my habits are still quite contaminated. So I really don't have any desire. I'd much prefer for us to have friendship and of equals. I do acknowledge Sudharma Prabhu as she's being senior, but please don't put me anywhere near that. You know, it's like I didn't have the good fortune of taking initiation from Prabhupada. I didn't have the good fortune of personal service to him. So please, let's just don't put me in anything that I don't deserve to be on. But moving away from that and moving to the point, so if we just accept someone's misunderstanding and reflect it back to them and are nice and validating, that's going to open up our discussions to all kinds of speculations and falsehoods. So addressing that. So I'd like to make a comment to that point. So the thing is, I've seen, Prabhupada talks about certain principles. The principles are on the page, on the website. And one of them is that in 1715, Prabhupada says, a discussion amongst Vaishnavas should always be very sweet, very kind. And one should not correct someone unless he's a disciple. Only if he's a disciple. We only can say to someone who has said to us that I surrendered to you as your disciple, only to such a person. Haripriya, if you're looking up the verse, that'd be
I got it.
Maybe you can read that.
It's the purport or I just got to it.
Yeah, you can.
Austerity of speech. Do you want me to read the text as well or just the purport?
It's very short, so please do.
Austerity of speech consists in speaking words that are truthful, pleasing, beneficial, and not agitating to others, and also in regularly reciting Vedic literature. One should not speak, in this purport, one should not speak in such a way as to agitate the minds of others. Of course, when a teacher speaks, he can speak the truth for the instructions of the students, but such a teacher should not speak to those who are not his students if he will agitate their minds. This is penance as far as talking is concerned. Besides that, one should not talk nonsense. The process of speaking in spiritual circles is to say something upheld by the scriptures. One should at once quote from the scriptural authority to back up what he is saying. At the same time, such talk should be very pleasurable to the ear. By such discussions, one may derive the highest benefit and elevate human society. There is a limitless stock of Vedic literature, and one should study this. This is called penance of speech. That's beautiful. Thank you for that.
So it should be very pleasant. The only time where we have the prerogative to chastise someone is if they're our student, our disciple. There's different kinds of discussion in the Vedic realm. There's different words for discussion in the Sanskrit terminology. One is samvada. Samvada means when an acharya or a teacher gives discourse for his students. It's a one-way discourse. It's an instruction. Vada, you can look this up on Google. I heard it from the senior devotee, but then I looked it up on Google and I found it in some texts. Vada means a discussion between equals. But Krishna says in chapter 10, text 32, amongst spiritual sciences, amongst sciences that get to spiritual truth or something, I am Vada. So through Vada, peer discussion, we can begin to penetrate spiritual truths. But it's not one of teacher to student. It's one of peers coming together to discuss. You know, there's been no surrender of one person to the other person. No one person hasn't said, I see you as, as the Lord's representative. Now I surrender unto you. We're coming together as equals to discuss the teachings of the person whom we accept as our superior. Then there's Vitanda and Jalpa. And Vitanda and Jalpa are both very inauspicious, ineffective ways of discussing, because they're based on just trying to put the other person down, trying to win. And there's a lot of false kinds of arguments used, in this kind of discussions, this rank pulling, invalidating, false, all kinds of things go on to win, to assert yourself over the other person. But Vada is devoid of those things. There's no rank pulling, there's no demonizing, there's no unpleasantness in Vada. Vada is very pleasant. I just want to start with saying that, and then I'd like to say a little bit more, but just give anyone a chance to say anything they want, maybe possibly reflect something back.
That you're using Prabhupada's principles to form this discussion. Can I just reflect that part back? That's what you're trying to stick to. Yes. The principles Prabhupada taught us in the books.
I understand them. And I've tried to explain to you some of the things that I've understood. So these 4 terms, Samvada, which is a superior giving a discourse to a subordinate. Vada, which is correct discussion, which gives rise to understanding between people who consider themselves equals. They may not be, the relationship may change, but they're coming into the discussion as equals. And then Vitanda and Japa, which are very destructive, ineffective ways of discussing. And
is Vitanda with a V?
V.
I've heard of Vada. What's that one? Vitanda?
Vitanda. If anyone ever has time, I talk about Vada, Vitanda, and Jalpa on the website, improvingsanga.com, under Principle 7. And in the questions section of Principle 7, you'll have questions. What are these terms mean? And I explain it at length using Baladeva Jibhushan's commentaries. So in Vada, the speech is very pleasant and pleasing, and there isn't the mood of superior and subordinate. So how do we, why is that important to understand? So I'm just going back to that was my Shastric basis from which my introspection and reasoning came as we began to work out how my husband and myself were going to discuss, how these useful tips came about. So we realized that we can't lord it over each other in a discussion. We can't, if you say to me, Chintamani, that's wrong. What happens in me internally is immediately I feel attacked. And what happens is that I close off to you internally. Externally, I may look okay, but internally, there's a closing off that happens because I've never surrendered to you. And then suddenly you're telling me, Chintamani, you're wrong. That's wrong. That's not right. And so an internal resistance immediately sets in. But if we approach it differently, the way I'm going to suggest, we don't create this internal resistance towards each other. We don't create this, inappropriate, I'm taking the position of your teacher, and then the other person, well, I don't accept you like that. Who told you, what makes you think you can tell me I'm wrong? And even if we don't say it out of politeness, we're creating an internal resistance to each other. So I'm going to suggest a different way of going about it, that this doesn't happen. Am I talking loads of rubbish, or is it okay so far?
Well, can I reflect just so that you can see whether I understood everything you said?
Really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Okay, so what I'm hearing you say is that we need to be very mindful of basically what is our position when we're talking with each other. Did this person accept me as teacher or not? And so you said that there's a distinction between Vada and Samvada. So Samvada is that this teacher to disciple. So the teacher has the right to chastise the disciple because the disciple has surrendered to the teacher as, I know you know better than me. So therefore he will gladly accept and we've seen that many times between Srila Prabhupada and his own disciples. And that's correct. That's according to Shastra. But Vada, in this discussion, neither of us have accepted either of us as teachers in that position or surrendered to each other. So therefore, that would not be an appropriate way to interact with one another. So then how do we interact with one another when we see that someone we perceive that is a misunderstanding of what Srila Prabhupada is saying here? So how do we do this in a way that is still pleasing? And that does not create this kind of dissension where we start closing our hearts to each other. Does that make sense?
Perfect. You understood it perfectly. And that was a huge soundbite that you were able to reflect back. So really well. Thank you. So may I say a little bit more?
Sure, absolutely.
The useful tips, the protocols we use in, I'm just going to use this term, IMOS method. It's short for Improving Our Sadhu Sangha website, just IMOS method. It's made up by me, but just for ease of communication. So according to the principles of the IMOS method, there's different ways that we can correct each other or be corrected by each other, because it could be that my understanding was wrong and I'm thinking the A wrong. It could be that me who's wrong. So there's a very pleasant way we can go about it. First is we validate the other person's understanding. We never, not with our body language, not with our tone of voice. You really think that? Nothing. We don't in any way emotionally invalidate the other person's thinking process, because as soon as we start invalidating each other, we create very, very subtle blockages. And where there's subtle blockages, transformation can't happen. We're too busy defending ourselves to be open enough to change, to transform. So in every way, in the way we reflect back, in our tone, our voice, in our facial expressions, we reflect back their understanding with complete validity. And I was having a conversation with one person about this, and they were saying, well, if they're wrong, how can you validate it? You're being false. What I'm validating, what I'm remembering is this person is applying their intelligence to do their best to understand this sentence. So with every way, with every respect, I'm validating the endeavor. I'm validating the fact that they are trying to put it in their own words, even if, in my point of view, they've got it wrong. But I validate that. I focus on their endeavor, that they're trying their best to use their God-given intelligence to understand this. So in every way, I validate that endeavor. Should I keep speaking, or do you want me to pause from time to time?
I want you to get to the gist.
Okay.
I'm joking, but because I know where you're going with it. But I mean, because it is a beautiful way that helps people get clarity. So I'm just hoping there's enough time in this session that you share that part.
I will get to that part. So that after I've understood you, let's say we're doing a discussing and you've said something which I don't agree with. I don't think it's what Prabhupada is saying, but it's your understanding. So I will reflect it back. I will validate. I say, thank you so much. I've never seen it that way, but that's really interesting. Then when it comes to my turn to understand, I'm going to say, well, the way I saw the sentence when I read it, this is, I found your understanding very interesting. I've never seen it that way. I validate it. Or I may not say anything. I just say, thank you so much. And then I go to my understanding, and I'll put the understanding in my words, the way I understand it. And of course, in a discussion, what are they going to do for me? They're going to reflect it back. So they get to really hear and assimilate my understanding as well. And if there is no emotional tension between us, if there's no kind of like defensiveness between us, who do you think you are? I'm not going to change myself because of you, because we haven't created that vicious dynamic between us. We've created an open dynamic between us. Right at that stage, they may actually change their perspective. They may think, oh yeah, I hadn't seen it that way. Yeah, I agree now. So the change may happen at that stage. I know Sudama left, so I'm going to get Krishna Priya or Sudama or Hari Priya to reflect it back for us. I'm not just hearing my own voice. Would anyone like to? Whoever wants to reflect it back for Sudama.
Whoever wants to reflect it back for Sudharma.
Because Sudama had to just nip off for some reason. So she missed some of that.
Siddharma didn't go anywhere.
Oh, I beg your pardon, Siddharma. So sorry.
That was me. My son is in the kitchen and he's clapping and clapping, and he would not hear me because he had his earbuds in. I had to go in and tell him, please stop clapping because I can't focus. So that was me who walked away. Sorry.
Recently, twice, I've sent a WhatsApp message to the wrong person. Once I sent it on the broadcast message to everybody. So I think I am going slightly senile. So that was another evidence of the fact that my memory is going. Please, I think Sudama Vaishnavi missed some of it. So maybe Haripriya, you'd like to reflect it back for her?
So you said that because you've done it because you've honored them and honored their attempt to understand that there's no tension between you, there's no defensiveness in them, there's no, kind of subtle disagreement with you. So there's no wall up and they're very open. And so they're just now honoring you and listening to you and reflecting it back. And now when they reflect it back, because that takes, really using their mind and to hear it, to understand it, and then to share it back in their own words, even in that moment, they might go, oh, wait, actually, I didn't know it. I didn't understand it that way. But yeah, that actually makes more sense. And they change their understanding just from reflecting it back for you.
Reflecting what back for me?
Reflecting back your understanding of the,
Yes.
of the text.
And that happens a lot. I've seen that happen a lot because we're creating a safe, emotional safety between ourselves where there's no one-upmanship. Sometimes I'm the one who changed, in our discussion with my husband or someone else, sometimes I'm the one who goes, yeah, I hadn't seen it that way. No, I prefer your understanding to mine. And sometimes it happens vice versa because we're not creating any one-upmanship, any defensiveness between ourselves. So that's one place where it can be caught. But you may decide, you still see it your way. So then we have what we call responses. And responses are always led by a question. But then we can ask a question. I wonder if there's any evidence we can find to support either or both of our understandings. So you can go and look for evidences to support either or both, and you start looking at the evidences. Or you can bring up doubts, like, for example, that quote in the Bhagavad-Gita from Yamunacharya, whenever I see a woman, whenever I think of sex life with a woman, I spit at the thought. You know the one I'm talking about? So I heard, and maybe Sudharma can validate or either confirm or unconfirm this, but I heard from some Prabhupada ladies that in some temples in America, there was, in the early days, Brahmanas were going around spitting at the Vaishnavis, at the Brahmanis, because they misunderstood that verse, that to mean that whenever I see a woman who makes me think of sex, I spit at the actual woman. So, we are going to misunderstand things. We're always doing that, and we miss. So imagine if they were doing this form of discussion. So they come down and they're reading that verse and they say, yeah, when this Yamunacharya is saying that whenever he sees a woman who makes him think of sex, he spits at the woman. They're just putting what's inside and they're showing it. They're just putting it out on the table. So then we can ask doubts. We can raise doubts when it's time for the response, not straight away. We understand them, we reflect it back, we honor it. And then in the response, we can say, that was a really interesting understanding you had. And we can do our own understanding. If they still don't change their mind, then we go to the response. And the response will raise our doubts and say, well, how would that sit with Vaishnava Aparad? Because if they're Vaishnavis, is it okay to spit at them? So we begin raising doubts. Or we say, is there anywhere in Shastra that would confirm that it's okay to spit at a woman, at a Vaishnavi? So we begin to, there's so many other tools we have when it comes to the response to challenge misunderstandings without challenging the person. Does that make sense at all? And because I've not shared all the responses,
it makes complete sense. I agree with everything you say.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. We have only 5 minutes left. So I suppose I would suggest that we stop now. We'll continue with the rest of the examples next week, because this is, if we can all get the hang of this, understanding, even if it's a misunderstanding, commenting and paraphrasing, we have got a really important grasp of the Emos method. But before we leave, would you mind if I just made a comment to something else that happened in our last session, unless anyone else would like to say something?
I just want to apologize that I used the wrong word when I said get to the gist. I just want to apologize. That was the incorrect word. I just meant keep going. Sorry if that came off. You know, I feel a little bit like a daughter to you. So if I also don't know if I don't want anyone else to feel like I'm being disrespectful to Mother Chintami. She's like my rock. So I just want to clarify that.
You know, I don't take offense with my own kids. And I always tell them, look, kids, where there's love, there's no offense. So if you're allowing me to accept you as another daughter, then where there's love, there's no offense. So please, we can just, dispense with that notion in our mutual dealings. It's loving dealings, there's no offense. So I would just like also, because last time, and it was clumsy of me, but I just want to help you understand, though the way I came across was very clumsy, and I'm also always trying to learn how to do it more gently, sweetly. I want to express to you why I caught Hari Priya and said, Hari Priya Prabhu, you know, everything was nice, but your body language, smile. So when we have very high when we have a high positive relationships, it's okay just to reflect back. I mean, I never doubted why you were reflecting back what Krishna Priya said, because we know each other, and I have an opinion of you, which is being based on our relationship. And my opinion of you is a very gentle soul, a very respectful soul, not a very non-confrontational soul, you know. So I have an opinion of you. So if you were just understanding me, I would have been okay like that. But the reason I said that is because, and we didn't video last week, so I can only go on my memory. But my memory is that as you were reflecting back to Krishna Priya, several times Krishna Priya said, yes, but I'm only saying it the way I saw it. I'm only saying about the way my mind works. I'm only saying how my mind works. So what I detected, and maybe I'm overly sensitive to body language and things like that, but what I detected is that because Krishna, and I haven't discussed this with Krishna Priya, I'm just telling you my perspective, and I'd like Krishna Priya to speak for herself. We haven't gone through this with her, because I just wanted her to be able to speak for herself. But what I felt might be happening is that because there isn't yet a very established relationship between the two of you, she might be feeling fearful that you've taken offense and now you're setting her up to defeat her. She may not have been thinking that, but because she kept, every time you understood it, she'd say, yeah, but I'm only trying to say how my mind works. I'm only trying to say how my mind works. As if, look, please, I'm not attacking you. Don't attack me. You know, that's what I heard in my mind. So I think body language, it differs depending on the relationship we have. And that's why I suggested when we're first establishing relationship, when we're still establishing safety, emotional safety between each other, when we're trying to first establish trust between each other, we have to be even more conscious of these things. You know, that our body language and our facial expressions and our tone of voice express our intention as much as our words. Did that make sense?
It did, and I want to share, I'm very grateful because I actually am not very expert at my tone of voice, sharing my intention. So actually it was perfect because I grew up with a mother who's an amazing, intelligent devotee, but she has a very high bar for herself. And because she also had a high bar for me, we would often have arguments. So there was just an element of like, I can be quite passionate, and that can be misunderstood as, you know, aggression. And so I don't mind the correction. And if ever it comes up again, please do correct me if ever I seem intense, because my nature is a bit intense and passionate, you know, and so forgive me.
There's no forgiveness. And I'm also learning, I think probably one of the best ways, because, you know, everyone here is here because they want to be transformative people, transformative in our own lives, transformative in the lives of others in a positive way. If you weren't a person who valued positive transformation, you wouldn't be interested in a topic like this, you know. So everyone's here because we're people of high integrity. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. And I'm also learning that rather than catching it on the spot, to discuss the principle, because once you understand the principles, you'll use the principles voluntarily, because that's why you're here. So that's why it was in a very high, like if you were just talking to me, you don't have to be so conscious of body language or tone of voice. But someone whom you're establishing with, everything, our tone of voice, our facial expressions, our eye contact, our smiling, has to bring them to ease. I'm not attacking you. I'm not attacking you.
So on that note, don't mind, but Krishna Priya, I'm very sorry too if I ever seemed intense to you. And no, I admire your honesty with us about where you're at, and I was hoping you would stay in the group. That's just my, you know, personal perspective. And at the time, I was trying to let you know that I was happy to kind of be the topic of conversation and be an external perspective to, I mean, be able to reflect it back without getting emotional about it. So forgive me if I did seem like I know I was leaning in, and I, you know, sometimes when I have an understanding, I kind of say it quickly. So for whatever reason, my body language, if ever communicated anything, but I honor your perspective, I do apologize.
I may not have understood Krishna Priya properly, but that was my intention.
But just in case you did understand her properly, I do want to apologize.
Krishna Priya,
Actually, I didn't feel like anyone was attacking me, or, you know, I didn't feel insulted in any way. I was more like focused on what was being discussed, and, you know, in that didn't completely kind of match with what I was experiencing in my own mind. This, like I said it, you know, because I tend to kind of analyze, you know, like we've been doing this, going systematically through the different systems. So the fault, I think, is more myself and my own attitude towards everything, or my outlook, rather than fault of someone else. So I'm trying to find out how I am fitting in the whole scene. And you see, most of you all are so expert in doing this, and I'm just coming around this corner and just trying to kind of grasp a little bit of it, and going, you know, I cannot remember all these things and reflect it back, or just like, you know. So I have a feeling, you know, I'm not even in a position to kind of judge, you know, someone has done something wrong. So if I gave that impression, that was completely unintentionally. I just wanted to kind of bring across that I was trying to do my best to understand, you know. So
thank you.
Yeah, I don't know what to say more at this point, but I think just, you know, I'm not, you know, I'm not hang up with it or anything. I just kind of happy that we moved on, and, you know, by discussing it this way, it has clarified a lot for me. And I think we should just move on, and as we grow into the contact, we will get, you know, I will be able to more like kind of find my way into it. So I'm hopeful.
Me too.
Can I say something?
Please do that, Ravi.
So, well, first to Hari Priya, I wanted to say that I'm also a very intense person too. So I do, you know, I do understand, and I also would accept any in any way to be corrected if I come across a certain way, because I don't really mean to be coming across as an intense person, but I am. And also because pretty much my entirety I'm giving all the time, and I'm always in somebody else's world, that, oh my gosh, now I can actually say something from my for myself. So sometimes I may get too excited and say too much. So please forgive me with that. It's kind of like, oh my gosh, I can finally speak my own mind. So and then also to Krishna Priya, is that just knowing autism firsthand, I think you're doing phenomenal, because it's a very difficult thing, even just to read body language and to reflect back. It's very difficult. And I think you're doing a fantastic, I mean, you're doing amazing. So and also I actually really welcome these discussions where we actually don't necessarily agree with each other, because then we can actually be open about, this is where I'm coming from. And I saw this when I explained myself, that immediately Hari Priya picked up on it and is like, oh, I'm glad to hear that's where you're coming from. So I think it's important that, you know, also that we don't say you're wrong, but we say, oh, this is what I'm feeling and that's why I'm feeling this way, so the person can understand that that's how we're coming from. So I see that Hari Priya left, so we should probably leave it at that. Okay.
I'm sorry Hari Priya left, because I just want to tell her one thing. I wasn't correcting her. I was just trying to explain, because it's going to be recorded, so if she sees it, I can that way that it's not that I was telling her, Hari Priya, what you did last time was wrong. Not at all. There is no right and wrong. I was just trying to explain my rationale for suggesting smiling, and not so much catching her doing something wrong, but explaining how my mind was working and why I suggested that. But I'm so grateful to Krishna that he has brought me in contact with such really lovely Vaishnavis. And I really truly pray that our association will develop lovingly and shastrically. We will become happy. Is there anything anyone else would like to say, or should we offer our obeisance? Sudharma?
Maybe Sudharma Mataji would like to say something. I didn't hear her very much.
Would you like to say any closing words, Sudharma Pipla? How you feel?
I would like to say, I guess, that in listening to everybody in this last portion of the discussion and reflecting in my own mind, in my own experience, and my own thought, I feel that it is very important for every devotee, and especially for the Vaishnavis, because we tend to oftentimes be more in the mood of observing and listening and serving, that we find our voices, not just in being able to express ourselves, but also being able to express when we see something differently, or we do have a different vantage point, viewpoint. And therefore, I like your point, Chintamani, and others are making the same point, that it's important to learn how to do that, because we're all standing in different places in life, and therefore we're going to have a different vantage point and a different view. And when we take the time to overcome our feelings of discomfort and express how we see something a little different, oftentimes when it's done in the right mood, it can help to paint the whole picture rather than just a portion of a perspective. And in that, we also find our voices, and we become comfortable that just because our perspective is different doesn't mean that it's wrong, or that it isn't valuable, or that it doesn't bring something to light. And so, you know, I think that the more that we can feel comfortable sharing in those ways, the more that we can be supportive of each other in the bigger picture of life. And therefore, I think it's very incredible and important to learn to do that, to feel comfortable about doing it, to share it with others, and to imbibe it in all aspects of our life.
Thank you,
That's what
Sudharma.
I would share.
I think you kind of like picked up and closed it all up, really. You expressed it very concisely and poignantly. Thank you so much for those affirmations.
Well, thank you everyone for putting your heart and time into committing to each other and sharing.
So unless anyone says differently on our WhatsApp group, we will continue with this exercise next time until we all really feel comfortable with this. And then we'll go use this comfort to go back to the text and practice this habit on the text. Thank you so much. Vanchakalpa Trubhischa.
Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna. See you next week at 10 o'clock. I mean, 4 o'clock your time.